Space Marine 2 is one of the best current examples of a video game that exemplifies the expression less is more. Hear me out. I was quick to criticize the game's short campaign runtime of 7 hours before I even played it. Now that I have finished the campaign, I can now say that this is the perfect runtime for the game on offer. Space Marine 2's campaign is telling two simultaneous stories within the 7 to 8 hour runtime. The obvious story at play is the Space Marines are attempting to fight back the Tyranid invasion on multiple worlds, and somewhere along the way, the forces of chaos enact their plot to open the void further. At least this is what I gathered to be the plot while I played. The sleeper plot within the main plot is the redemption of Titus's reputation. Basically, for anyone that hasn't played, Titus was accused of being corrupted, which probably has to do with heresy, and is sent to the Death Watch, where he served 100 years of penance. Because of a particularly difficult mission where Titus displays massive heroism and sacrifice that almost results in his death, he is selected to undergo some surgery to save his life and promoted to Ultramarine rank, giving him another chance at serving the Imperium. For whatever reason, one of the higher ranked Marines does not want this knowledge to be known amongst the masses of soldiers, including Titus's new squad mates. This is where the character tension comes into the story, because one of the two squad members named Godriel is very skeptical about Titus. The other squad member, Chiron, is more reserved in his judgment, although Chiron has his own personal struggles within the story. The main plot and the subplot work together to develop and test the loyalties amongst the three squad members, resulting in either the strengthening or the weakening of their brotherhood. Like I said at the start of the video, Space Marine 2 does an excellent job of not overstaying its welcome with the campaign. I never felt a moment of drag in the story, nor did the combat ever get stale for me. This high-paced, high-impact storytelling made the 7 hours very memorable and impactful. Personally, I would have liked a couple of missions where you would get to explore the environments a bit more prior to the big battles. Something along the lines of a briefing mission where you walk the halls of a big outpost just so that there isn't that impending danger that needs an immediate resolution. A level where the player can appreciate the world design without fear of getting smacked up by Terminids. This isn't at all necessary, but something I would have liked given how much I personally enjoyed the worlds the devs have crafted for us. The combat and enemy design are the biggest reason why Space Marine 2's campaign must be short and sweet. There isn't much variety in the number of different enemy types in the game. Because of this, the player's approach to a combat situation will be similar in many of the levels. Boss fights do a great job of breaking the monotony of combat, which is good, but only works so well because of the short runtime. There aren't many bosses in the game, but there's not supposed to be if your campaign's only 7 to 8 hours long. If the runtime were longer, the need for more consecutive bosses would be more evident. In other words, the longer the game's runtime is, the more bosses are needed within the gaps of normal gameplay to give the player a higher sense of arousal. Space Marine 2 also adds certain objectives within different levels of the story to further force adaptation on the player's part, which I believe was implemented quite effectively. There are objectives within the story where the player must stay within a certain area to hold and defend. There are other objectives that make the player clear out hordes of Tyranids that are causing damage to some important component, like the chains to a lift that if broken would result in mission failure. These change-ups desperately help what otherwise ends up being a grunt killing simulator. When you are in these battles against hordes of either faction, it is incredibly fun because it demonstrates the pure carnage that the Space Marines are capable of. One squad is essentially capable of taking out thousands if not tens of thousands of enemies in a given moment. It's awesome. It makes you, the player, feel like a walking tank, almost like a god amongst these plebs. While you fight among some of the normal soldiers, you see how easily they are killed by the grunt enemies that you shrug off with the swing of your chainsword. The melee fights with some of the Tyranid warriors helps add complexity to the combat as you assess them as the major threat during most of your fights. The ranged Tyranids allow the player to make a choice between what threat is more dangerous in that moment. Do you take out the sniper first and then the wave, or do you deal with the wave first? All of this works great in providing depth within the combat and only heightens the boss fights when you do reach them. If there was any part of the campaign that I did not particularly enjoy, it would be the Kadaku missions. In general, I just didn't find much of an interest in that environment, so I kind of sped through those couple of levels quickly. The jungle environment didn't feel original or stimulating to me from an artistic point of view. However, this changes massively when we get to Avarax. The big city environment is amazing. Seriously, the skybox that was chosen was outright beautiful. The torn and destroyed parts of the city do a fantastic job of displaying the pure damage the Tyranids are capable of, and the elevation of the city landscape truly gives a futuristic sensation to the location. It's at this moment that I was officially hooked to the game on more than just the combat. The world came to life for me. This also carried on into the Demirium missions. Who thinks of a burial world? What an incredibly creative concept. All the tombstones, the skybox, the music, everything. All the elements within the game work to give the player the sense of the end of worlds. There are moments of dialogue between the characters where they showcase respect for the dead on the planet. Such beautiful art and attention to detail was clearly placed on world and level design. Despite how beautiful the game is, how incredible the world building is, and just how fantastic the combat feels, because it feels amazing, the runtime is still a problem in this game. It's not a big one, but it does exist and it needs to be criticized. A 7-hour campaign, 5 hours of operations, and 2 hours of multiplayer add up to 14 hours of new gameplay. For $60, this is a tough ask for some folks. Multiplayer is the biggest letdown in this game by a mile. There are only 3 PvP maps on offer, and only Mausoleum is somewhat fun. There are 3 game modes to go along with the 3 maps: Capture and Control, Annihilation or Team Deathmatch, and Seize Ground. Capture and Control and Seize Ground are the only ones worth playing. The class balance in PvP is all over the place as well, where the heavier classes tend to just do better than the lighter classes. So overall, multiplayer is simply too lackluster and gets very stale very fast. I also don't particularly like the fact that you can't host private matches for just yourself and your friends. This game desperately needs more maps, modes, and private lobbies to reach the same or even a similar level of enjoyment as Operations and Campaign. Also, how fucking annoying is it that you can't customize your heretic armor at all or all that much? Such a wasted opportunity here. It would have been perfect to allow the players to get creative with the colorways, since they won't be restricted by the blue color scheme that's associated with the Space Marines. Last thing on the PvP, I absolutely hate paid cosmetics in a fully priced game, especially one that won't likely be played past the 50-hour mark by most players. Feels a bit greedy on the part of the devs, but I don't think this practice is going away anytime soon, unfortunately, and has deeply plagued modern gaming. The best part of the game is the operations. As of right now, there are 7 of them. From the 7, I would say 5 are incredible and the other 2 are alright. Operations work so well within the class system because it can create moments of cooperation amongst the players, especially at harder difficulties. For example, if the number of Tyranids are too great for your squad, your heavy can turn on his shield and give the rest of the squad a moment to reload and assess the danger before going back in. The Vanguard can use his grapple gun to close the distance between him and the ranged enemies, or to gain a better position to fight off flanks. The Tactical Marine is the all-rounder who can adapt to any given situation should he need to. I've been on the opposite side of this cooperation where I needed time to charge up a gun to shoot at a given enemy, but had trouble doing so because of the lack of cover from my squad mates, resulting in an almost failed mission. I can see how some players may have an incredible time with this game when played together. It's just fantastic. It was designed for that. This is where the devs must have spent the most time on development, because you feel the love, the care, and the game design within the levels. You feel that cohesion of everything working well together. There are pockets of lore scattered around the levels in the form of data logs, character dialogues, and environmental storytelling for those massive Warhammer lore junkies to enjoy. To wrap up the review, I believe Space Marine 2 to be a must-play experience. Campaign sees a return to the older style of campaign design with beautiful handcrafted levels that leave epic memories of spectacle in the minds of the players. Operations gives way to combat creativity and cooperativity amongst randoms and friends in their defense of the Imperium, while exploring other areas and enemies that aren't fully realized in the campaign. And then there is the afterthought of PvP that, according to the Year 1 roadmap, will be getting new game modes and arenas by Season 3 or so, which is about Quarter 1 and 2 of next year for free. With everything discussed so far and the content yet to come, Space Marine 2 is an 8 out of 10 making it a great game on my scale. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. It's Jason JD. See you guys in the next one.